Assalamu alaikum, people listening and watching. You're tuning into the LETSWAK podcast. I'm your host, Ataur Rahman. Today I'm joined by Zain Samdani. Some of you know him. Some of you know him from the Microsoft challenge, and he has a very vast bio. He's a poet, he's an artist, and he's also a scientist, I would say. So Assalamu alaikum, Zain. Thank you for coming over here, and I want you to introduce yourself because I wouldn't be doing justice to it.
Walaikum salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Ata. It is truly an honor to be on the Let's Walk podcast. So in order to best introduce myself, I would say that I am a transcendent thinker. I take inspiration from cartoons and use those elements to bring my ideas to reality, essentially speaking. So, uh, yeah, let's get right into it.
Yeah, so I want you to maybe start off with the very initial idea that maybe I should get into robotics, and like how did you like figure out that maybe I should try robotics or make something like get into robotics, something like that.
Mhm. Okay. So I remember this thing. All right. I was 5 years old. Okay, and as any other kid, I was always watching cartoons. Okay, like the Transformers and whatnot. And during that time, okay, I saw my mother day in and day out, working on the household, helping me and my sisters get tidied up, and basically she was occupied with everything on a day-to-day basis, right? Whereas I, as a kid, was always like having the time of my life, playing with toys or watching cartoons, and it just hit me one day that hey, I don't see my mom having fun like I do, right? And when I thought about it at the time, I was like, okay, what does she do? Like, what does she spend most time in? She spent most time in doing her chores, and it just hit me then. And I went up to her and told her that, hey, mom, I'm gonna make a robot that's gonna do everything for you. And that's essentially where my robotics journey started.
Wow, that's nice. So you essentially wanted your mom to chill so that like she can relax and washing the dishes, cleaning the house, and whatever it is, the robot can do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, did you end up like actually making a small thing and like trying out something and figuring out something so that you could actually bring this idea into reality?
So this is a project that I've been working on for the longest time. All right. I have tried out a variety of small things. All right. But however, the conclusion that I came to at the end was that it is better to create smaller robots that can accomplish a multitude of different tasks. Like rather than trying to create just one robot that can do everything because the mechanical complexity, all right, and the AI behind such a robot would be so vast and extensive, at least for the time being right now.
So like, are you aware of the small? I don't know if they call it the Zumba. It cleans the floor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Oh
you're
yes,
saying that.
definitely.
So you're saying that creating something like a Zumba and then like a dishwasher kind of thing, and then like
Hmm.
doing separate tasks instead of creating one gigantic robot which does everything.
Basically speaking, yes, that's it.
So you'd be having small mini robots in your house.
Yes, yeah.
So I saw a couple of your other interviews to try to understand your story, and you said like you started off in a science fair where you saw one of your seniors, making one of the robots, and you said you like the healthy competition, which kind of inspires you and help you like create more. And I want you to
Hmm.
like share a little bit about what you think about competition and how it can help you. As in, like some people think about competition in a very negative sense, and it
Hmm.
gives off a very negative vibe. So I want you to give your 2 cents on that.
Hmm. Okay, that's quite the interesting question, honestly. And that interview from was a really long time ago, so I'm surprised that you looked into me that well. Okay, so to answer your question, all right. I was quite I was honestly very competitive back in my teenage days. All right, so I used to try and compete in everything that I could get my hands on. art competitions, whether it be art competitions or athletics or science fairs, all right? And it was, I'd say that when I got in 11th grade, that I truly understood, and that I truly began to understand what it means to have healthy competition with someone. All right. So back in those so back in those days, I finally found people who I can communicate and work with rather than just compete with. All right. And 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 my view on competition right now is the fact that yes, competition does promote a lot of growth, right? Than you just doing it on your own, right? A lot of my success, a lot of my earlier success, is because of that competitive spirit, right? But however, though, you will realize at some point in time that collaboration leads to much more development than what competition can accomplish.
Yeah. So with this, I want to kind of slide into leadership because being an effective leader with yourself, your team, Be Bionic, you have like few members on your team, and something which I struggled with, and I want to, kind of like dive into your cerebral cortex and see how you think about things. So basically my question is, like when you're in a position of leadership, you always want to get things on the highest standard. I want it to be, like this way, or I want it to be I want it to be perfect. And when you have team members on your team and when you delegate tasks,
Mhm.
they might not end up, having the perfect thing, and you have this innate urge or innate, tendency to go and try to do it yourself. Well, while when you do indulge in that, you kind of, lose the bigger picture. So how do you
Mhm.
deal with that, as a leader, and kind of like also, like, bringing your team together, getting the task done, but at the same time maintaining that standard?
Okay. Hmm. So, so essentially speaking, you try and look at things from the other person's perspective. All right. So, what matters to them right now? All right. How are they involved in the project? All right. What are their goals? All right. How is this benefiting them? Right? And then what I do is I navigate around the idea or the question or the objective that needs to be completed, right? And try and make it as personal as possible to the other person, right? So instead of giving them the idea like, hey, do this, all right, I try and encourage them to come up with their own ideas, right? So that they themselves go through this process of experimentation and figure out what the right way is, right? And what this does psychologically with them is that they then believe that they came up with the idea, and they are much more involved in the project or the task than they would have been otherwise. All right. So if I just told them to this, hey, just get this thing done. All right. Yes, they know what to do right now, right? But then their involvement in the idea, especially in the earlier stages of when you're starting out, right, is not going to be as much as it would have been if you challenge them to like come up with their own ideas, allow them to experiment, right? Allow them to like form their own views and then accomplish the task.
Mhm. So you're saying, like, you want them to come to their own conclusion, and that's where, they get more involved emotionally into the project.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's something, I think I need to apply more, because whenever I have been in a team and, a group project, I felt like, like, why isn't these guys working, like, and why am I, being like too much too emotionally attached to the project, and why am I trying to do everyone's job, and those kinds of things, where
Ah, yeah.
I feel like, in order to become an effective leader, I want them to be more indulged and more emotionally involved into the project, so that, we all can work together, other than, like, instead of one guy being burnt out, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, yes. I have been in that situation multiple times back in school, right? And honestly speaking, whatever I had tried back then did not work. All right. So what would happen at that point in time is that back in school nobody takes these assignments or projects seriously. Okay, it's just like, hey, like it's just like homework. All right, like like and just like the majority of students, like end up doing the homework in classroom right before the teacher is about to take it. All right, so a lot of students have that mindset around this, right? And that is why it's difficult to convince them to how should I say, to get on the same page with you on this, right? I've had similar so I personally have not had similar experiences, but but I've heard about similar experiences with my friends in college, all right? And they just told me at the end that okay, yeah, so next time when it comes to something that has been graded, I'd rather do it on my own, all right? Because the other students just are not putting because the other students just aren't putting an effort close to that level, right? And that happens sometimes, right? Because you cannot expect everyone to be at that, like at that same level of thought, right? And that is why as well the team that I've chosen, right? So these are people that I've handpicked because of their drive, okay, because of the passion that they have burning inside of them, right? So for example, for example, we have a brilliant applications developer on our team. His name is Raman from Nepal, and he's so passionate about just figuring problems out, right? Just making sure that things work. Right? That he will spend 15 hours, 16 hours just coding, right, in order to figure that one thing out, right? And this is and the only reason for that is that because that irks him, okay, that he literally has this desire to, okay, like I want to know how this works, right? I want to fix this, right? And I want to accomplish so and so, all right? So my one advice would be to try and figure out who these people are, right? People that genuinely have that curiosity, people that genuinely have that drive to, okay, like go the extra mile to figure things out. And that's where you are least likely to, like have these problems, right? Or you have this inconsistent effort from everyone in the team.
Yeah. So like, do you actually go to places where you find these people, or like, how do you actually handpick all your team members? I'm just curious about that.
Okay, so I have naturally been a very curious person, all right? Right? I try not judging anyone on our first meeting, on our second meeting, or for the most part, or for the most part, I just ask questions in order to figure out how their mindset is, right? What their thought process is, right? Who are they as a person, okay? And generally speaking, to find these kind of people, right? You try and get involved with these groups or communities, okay, and more than likely through consistent interaction you will find someone who you'll be able to click with, right? Or they might refer you to someone or some other event or some other organization where you might end up with someone, okay, who does feel the same way as you do.
That makes sense because I feel like, especially when it comes to like pharmacy, and at least in my college, at least in my department, things with, entrepreneurship and these things, they are not so much, of like, or like in people's priority list, I would say.
Hmm.
Just get the grade, get the degree done. We'll apply for job and we go to a consultancy, back to US again. The same story repeats again.
Hmm.
That kind of thing. And I felt kind of, like, lost, I would say. That, I felt like, am I the only one in this, like, in this place who feels like that? I feel like out of place. And then when I like
Hmm.
kind of started interacting with people, I felt like, oh, so I'm actually looking for the like for the wrong people in the wrong place. I'm trying to find someone who is interested in business and pharmacy. I mean, like,
Hmm.
although people might be interested, but that's not specifically the place. So I went to the management
Hmm.
department. That's where, I felt like, oh, these guys are actually having like they have a thing called sub Z. So everything from
Hmm.
A to Z, sub Z. That's how they call it.
Okay. Oh.
So they have people, selling fruits, people selling gulab jamun in our college on every Wednesday. So I was like, they're creating like opportunity for everyone, and that's where, I felt like, I need to be with these kinds of people. They understand me and I understand them, and I felt like,
Hmm.
figuring like going to different places and meeting a lot of people, kind of, uh, like made me feel that, like a sense of, community, that kind of thing, sense of, bonding, that kind of thing. Is that something you relate with?
Is that something that I relate with? Hmm. So I would say, so I don't specifically relate to that, all right. But when I was in Hyderabad over here, right? I stayed in Hyderabad for approximately 3 years, and so during that time, I spent a lot of my time going to conventions, going to fairs, going to events, all right, just to try and meet people with a similar mindset, right? People that actually had that drive to get something done, people that are passionate, right? Because that is the one thing that I can relate, because that's the one thing that I can relate to, with anyone or with anyone, right? But at the same time, what I had found was it's quite difficult to find such people over here, right? They are highly concentrated groups, all right, in very small parts of the entire city. Okay, and then on the other hand, when I moved on to Germany for my higher education, I realized that I realized that there's opportunity everywhere, right? And sometimes you need to, how should I say this? And sometimes you need to give a little push to some of these other peers that you have, right? So, for example, with ramen as well, right? So both me and Raman, we got connected over participating in a hackathon, all right? And before taking part in the hackathon, I had invited him twice or thrice, and he always felt that he wasn't capable enough. All right, and a lot of people have this, all right, that they don't think as highly of themselves, or they don't think that they're not worthy of taking part or even achieving so and so. All right, so sometimes you need to give them a little push, right? That hey, okay, that you are capable, okay, that you can do this, or just try it out. Okay, what's the worst that could happen? All right, and somewhat of this combination of finding the right people, all right, and not just taking them for their face value, right? You'll I'd say that between the balance of these two things, by striking that balance, you're more likely to find people that you can relate with.
Hmm. With this, I want to kind of like move into, like, I see you have different projects. Like at a time, you're trying to figure out a robot that can help your mom, and then there's ExoHeal, and you do different things. So do you believe that you need to have like one goal at a time, so that you're not kind of like burnt out or something? Or do you feel like having different projects kind of boosts your creativity, and gives you more inspiration?
Okay, so what I personally believe, all right, is that it's definitely beneficial to just focus on one project, all right, and just go all in with that. But at the same time, I would recommend to look at other perspectives, all right, to have other kind of hobbies as well, on the side at least, right. So what this does is that you end up taking inspiration from places where you would have never thought of taking inspiration from, right? So for me, okay, it's quite a constant habit or a constant practice that I take creative inspiration or creative dialogue from other fields, all right, into my own robotics field, or from my robotics field into the art field, okay, or from poetry to both, or from everything entirely into poetry. So all of this intermingles and helps me collaborate within all of my different projects, right? It's helping me elevate my mindset first, and then at the same time, it's also enabling me to look at my work from multiple perspectives at the same time.
So how have your hobbies? You do art like poetry and painting as well. So how does how have they helped you with your robotics, or like just in life in general?
Just in life in general. Okay. So for the most part, I use painting as a medium of expression. Right? I used to do that until I came up with my own art form, right? Wherein I now make a sort of three-dimensional kind of art, all right, using different bits and pieces, and then designing my own three-dimensional pieces, and then paint them, and then so that's a whole different process, right? So that is more for expressing things that just come to me, all right? I use poetry for expressing how I actually feel, right? And the way that these translate into robotics is that while these mediums are able to uh, are 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 able to bring forth my imagination on paper or in digital form, right? What robotics helps me does is it materializes these feelings and emotions into actual work, right? Or into actually solving problems. So that's how these things are converted into robotics for me. Another thing that I'm involved in is physical sports activity as well. So that's something that I do mostly for self development and good health and well being.
Yeah, that's interesting. I started rapping because I wanted to have
Hmm.
I was kind of like getting burnt out with the studying, and I wanted to kind of get all these emotions and everything like kind of a sense of relief, out into paper, and then that's how I started rapping, and yeah,
Hmm.
so I do rap, and all the while like making these podcasts and studying. So whenever I'm burnt out, I'm rapping.
Okay, that's fascinating. Yeah, I have quite the respect for how should I say, for musicians and singers and rapping in general, right? Because you're able to express what's within in such how should I say, in such a beautiful way, all right, that it just strikes a chord with anyone you're with.
Yeah, I've been kind of. I actually made a rap for like our graduating batch, like our seniors, and
Hmm.
then people like kind of getting all the college life into kind of like a poetry kind of thing. So expressing all the
Ah,
ups
that's
and downs.
nice.
So I might rap for you at the end of this thing.
Okay. Oh no, you're definitely rapping at the end. Yeah.
So I wanted to share your thoughts about coding. Do you think like coding, like learning to code is going to be necessary in the future? Because a lot of people have said that, if you don't know how to code, it's going to be hard in the future. Like coding is the mandatory thing to learn.
Ah, okay, yes. So in my opinion, coding is just like any other language, all right? When I say any other language, I mean, what do you call, like speaking Hindi or English or Malayalam, right? It's just like any other language, and I do believe it's going to be an essential part of education moving forward, all right? That coding is something that's going to be taught from grade one, okay? But however, though, at the same time, I also feel like it isn't something that everyone should be. How should I say that everyone needs to be well versed in. All right. So coding is something that's going to become a part of our day-to-day life, right? But at this, but at the same time, all right, it's not something that's for everyone, all right? Because honestly speaking, okay, for the most part, for the most part, although I'm involved in robotics projects, like coding is my least favorite part. All right, so I like so I like more of designing things, okay, rather than coding them, right? Yes, I'm good at it because I need to do that, all right, in order to make my projects work. But it isn't something that I purely enjoy.
Mm.
Okay, so and I remember and I remember during my time in India over here that a lot of adverts, all right. So for example, we had White Hat Junior and a lot of other programs popping up that actually made parents and kids envious that hey, that this is something that I really need. Okay, that coding is something that I need to learn, all right? And what happened due to this effect was a lot of students who did not have a knack for coding or who did not really enjoy coding, and ended up forcing themselves to like, hey, no, I need to learn this, I need to learn this because everyone's doing it, all right? Whereas on the other hand, that same student who has a knack for, let's say, uh, what do you call it? That same student who has a knack for how should I say this for designing, let's say, right, would be much better off, all right, learning Blender or Maya or AutoCAD, right, because that is something that would help elevate their future rather than learning to code.
Mm. That makes sense because I think it's like the Baiju thing as well. I shouldn't take names though, but like where parents kind of feel like like everyone's doing this,
Hmm.
everybody's putting their kids through Merit Nation, or through Baijus or through this thing, and their kids are getting
Hmm.
better marks. My kids should do the same thing, and I feel that somewhere parents are being like kind of targeted through these ads, and that's where they end up sending their kids to like coding classes or beat anything of that sort.
Definitely, yeah.
So I want to know, like, how did you come up with your name Zen Nemesis?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's quite the interesting question. So I came up with the name back when I was 12 years old. All right. And Nemesis, it can be perceived as quite a repulsive name for people that don't know the story behind it. But my reason for keeping that name is that no matter is that so for instance, no matter what obstacle that I face in life, all right, it's a reminder that that at any given point in time, okay, I'm capable of becoming the nemesis of whatever obstacle that I'm facing, or whatever challenge that is in front of me. All right, and becoming a nemesis basically means that I am approaching it at its level, right? Not being below it, not being above it, but looking at it dead in the eye and saying like, hey, like I can overcome this,
Wow.
right? Because you need to have that mindset. You need to be, you need to have that drive first of all, and then you need to look at things at that same level in order to know that okay, so this is everything that I need to overcome, right? And only then will you be able to like go across it. So that's the reason for the name Nemesis.
Wow, interesting, interesting. So I want you to, like, we talk about your success and everything. Do you have like very few people share about their, low moments in life? So have you had any low moments throughout your robotics journey and building up ExoHeal and everything?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. I love that you asked. I love that you focused on this question. A friend of mine were discussing on this. Just the other day, actually. Right. That I should start sharing more of my lower moments in life. Okay. And one of these moments that not a lot of people know about is that I actually had to take a gap for 3 years due to a medical condition in between, right? And these 3 years were spent in Hyderabad rehabilitating for the most part, right? So I was diagnosed with a rare eye condition, and this was back in Saudi, beginning of 2018. And my dad had taken me to every hospital in three cities, all right? And they were not able to figure out what was wrong with my eyes, all right? Why was this condition happening? Right? So essentially speaking, my vision would double after every 2 to 3 hours. Okay.
Crazy.
Okay. And here's the worst slash best part of it. Okay. That this happened right before my 12th board exams. So so during my exams, all right, I literally wrote I I I was literally only capable of writing half of my exams. All right. Because after that time, I would reach this limit of 2 to 3 hours and my body would just shut down. Okay, this my vision would double, and even patching one eye wouldn't help, right? Like it helped me last for like 10-20 minutes longer, all right, but not more than that, right? Because the brain would just tire out and then I would just shut down. So for at least half of my exams I was lying there asleep, right? So moving on from there, all right, we did find uh, I moved to India in order to figure out what was going on, and Alhamdulillah over here they were able to diagnose the condition, and and then and here's the other striking bit, right? Because it was such a rare condition, the only treatment that they could offer was surgery, right? And because of the rarity of such a condition, the success rate for such a surgery was quite low as well, right? So there were more chances of complications happening at the same time, right? Uh, uh, and due to all of these factors, okay, I then decided to not opt in for the surgery, and something interesting that happened during this time was that my little sister Suha, she decided that she would come up with a rehabilitation routine to help me out. All right. And after consulting with multiple doctors, neurosurgeons, neuroscience experts, she was able to come up with a routine that helped me rehabilitate myself in 2 years' time naturally, rather than opting for surgery. So that's another interesting aspect. So that's another interesting good thing that came out of it, right? But yet at the same time, because of this condition, I was not able to. I was not able to join university, all right, whereas all of my peers had completed 3 years of their college, and they've all graduated this year right now, right? I was not able to take part in competitions. I was not able to I was not able to partake in group activities. I was bound to my home for I believe the first 1.5 year as well, because I couldn't stay out for longer. And yeah, and I had to work and deal with this condition, and then just go through life. So that is what I would say as one of the biggest life changing moments that I've had. But then at the same time as well, something that my mother has instilled within me from the very get go is that it all depends on the perspective I view my situation as. All right, that there is good in everything. All right, only if I choose to perceive and look for the good in these situations, right? So what I did was I took this time to understand myself and to work on myself bit by bit, right? In the time that I had, I tried to understand my own psychology better. I try to engage in as many courses as I can, and basically interacting and engaging with other global change makers. And this helped to elevate my mindset. It helped me to it helped me to place the building blocks into who I have become today.
Yeah,
So yeah.
so I didn't know about this. Like I do some solid research on my guests, and I didn't know about this. So I'm curious about like the routine. Like, were you doing eye exercises, or like what were you doing in like the routine by which your sister made?
Oh yes. So it was filled with a bunch of eye exercises. It was filled with green therapy, a form of meditation as well. Right. It was a combination of a lot of these things. She had also made this biodegradable juice string device, with which I can perform eye exercises in a more coordinated manner as well. So it was a lot of these things combined that I had to go through.
Wow. Do you like intend on sharing it to the world anytime soon?
I don't. In term. Okay, so my sister is actually working on this, all right, and
Hmm.
she has been helping out other kids within the community as well, right? So what was special about my condition is that usually what happens is, it's diagnosed at a very early age for children, all right, between the ages of 5 to 13, all right. What happened with me was my brain somehow found a way to mitigate this or go around it, all right. All right, and the condition how should I say, and the condition rose back up, due to due to a sort of trauma that I had to go through, and I lost control over that, right. And that's when all of these things started coming up. So that's why it was quite rare to see this in someone who is an adult now.
Okay. Okay. So, with this, I want to dive into mental health, with entrepreneurship, with all the hustle that we talk about day in and day out,
Mhm.
with people through media, through YouTube, everywhere you see people say, I'm going to sleep when I die, hustle this and that. I feel somewhere, mental health is not being addressed, and, people suffer, and, people feel lonely, people, feel that they are not in place, and they feel lost. And do you feel like, uh, that these things are very necessary to be addressed, especially in the entrepreneurship community? And have you like
Mhm.
thought about doing something about this?
Oh yes, so I have been involved in a few mental health projects in the past, right? And still am working on an application based on this as well. So since you mentioned loneliness, all right. So I actually have a number for this. So did you know that this is pre-pandemic, okay? That 70% of heavy social media users reported feeling lonely, all right? And then during the pandemic, these numbers rose by 30%,
Wow.
all right?
Shouldn't they feel connected, like they're using social media, right?
No, 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 no. So I'll tell you something, all right? So during the pandemic, okay, regardless of the number of connections, or the number of matches, or the number of followers that you might have on these social platforms, okay, how many of these, so essentially speaking, how many of these people can you actually hit up and be like, hey, do you have a minute? I would like to share something. Like, how many of these people can you actually have that deep one-on-one conversation with? Right? Very few people.
Very few people. Very
Very few people. All right, and in some people's cases, even nil. All right, so you might be having thousands of followers, but there's not even one person that you can reach out to. All right, that's genuinely going to be there for you. All right, and understand your perspective. Okay, and that is because of the lack of connection that we have right now in today's day and age. All right, there's so much influx of information, there's so much influx of everything that's going on. All right, that we lose ourselves in the midst of all of it. Right, so for instance what I believe is, when the pandemic hit, all right, a lot of people lost access to distractions that they had earlier. When I say distractions, I mean things like school, things like work, things like going to the park, going to the movies, right? Because everyone was forced into this lockdown like situation, right? And no matter how much you try to, when you're like work all day, or no matter how much you binge watch Netflix or play games all day, there would come a time when all of your insecurities and all of the things that you've been holding back catch up with you, right? And if you don't address these, right, they are just going to keep on building up, right? And this happened for a lot of people during the pandemic. A lot of people's mental health based difficulties caught up to them, and that is why the mental health and that is why this became such a massive problem during the pandemic, right? And all of this and all of this has and all of this is unraveling right now at the moment. Okay, to answer your second question, in terms of entrepreneurship, all right, we do have a culture that insinuates that work and work and work, all right. But however, at the same time, what I believe is, what I believe is that it's also not just these people; it's also society at fault over here. Okay, so for example, in case of entrepreneurs or high achieving teens, all right, so teenagers that study a lot, that are getting constant A's, all right, or teenagers that are working on projects, or entrepreneurs that are working on these massive projects, they are expected to be perfect. They are expected to do everything with the utmost efficiency, okay, and perfection, right? That it bogs down on them, all right? And society does not look at that. So society, for the most part, expects them to be that way, and these expectations can weigh you down so much, all right? And this is something that isn't talked about much, all right? That we entrepreneurs are humans as well, all right? That we do have feelings, that we do go through these highs and lows in life as well, right? Just like anybody else, right? But because of the expectations, we are not allowed to show these emotions, right? We are expected to not let these bog us down. So in order to tackle these, I'm currently working. So I currently have another team in Germany, and we are working on developing a new kind of social media that helps foster deeper connections first.
I'm curious, how do you uh, like foster deeper connections if it's social media again?
Okay, yes. Okay. So let me think. Word. Hmm. So based on what I can share at the moment about this is that, so what we are doing is, all right. So whenever you make up a new connection, all right, you have to go through the small talk. No, 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 no. You have to go through the opener first, all right, and then you go through the small talk, and then you have the deeper conversations. All right, all right. We are flipping the script, all right, and enabling people to have these deeper conversations first, right? And this is through the exploration of their values. All right. So we've come up with a system that helps people understand their values first, because you and I, all right, it's not stories, it's not profession that we might truly connect on, but what values that we actually have, right? We connect on similar values, right? Because you and I can be from different professions or from different fields entirely, but if we have the same values, that's where the connection happens.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Whenever you release or whenever you have something, like some trailer or like some snippet of it, I would love to share
Mhm.
that. because that's something I'm interested in. Because sometimes I feel that like for sure, like Instagram and other social media platforms are good as well, but like are you really like can you really count on those people? Like when you're having a bad time, can you really reach out to them?
Yep.
And that's something I think about, and I feel kind of like low when I think about that. So, so
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're coming up with such a thing. I'm really happy about that. And since we are almost approaching time, I kind of end up with the questions. We call it the perspective questions. So to bring a lot more perspective into our lives. So are you ready for that?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So the first question is, if you were to have a dinner with three people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
That's an interesting question. I haven't really thought much about this. Hmm, I would say, so one of them has to, one of them has to be Leonardo da Vinci. All right. So this is a man that has had a multitude of talents and has looked at a multitude of fields. All right. A lot of people just look at him as an artist, but he was involved in so much more. Right? So one of them has to be Leonardo da Vinci. The other one has to be Elon Musk. All right, he is the pioneer of our generation, or one of the pioneers of our generation. And the third one, and the third one, and the third one, and the most important from all of this, all right, would be Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, in order to understand the patience and the drive that he had to live the life that he has lived.
Wow. So three people, Leonardo da Vinci, Elon Musk, and our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nice. So, uh, if you had a notification that would pop up in people's devices, be it tablets, phones, whatever that might be, first thing in the morning, what would it say?
What would it say? Oh, this depends from different person to person, but I would say that okay. So this is something that I have been saying to myself a lot as well. So it has to be that at any given point in time, all right, you are capable of altering your state of thought, all right, to do what needs to be done.
Do you
So
mind
that's
going a little?
something.
Do you mind going a little deep into that?
What do you mean by deep behind the perspective?
Yeah, yeah, behind the
Okay,
perspective.
that so what I essentially mean is that at any given point in time, that during any given situation, all right, no matter what situation you are in, no matter what place you are at, right, you are eternally capable, all right. Our minds are so much more capable and so much more amazing than what we really think of. Okay, that you're eternally capable of altering your state of mind, of changing your mindset, all right, in order to do what needs to be done, right? Because I honestly believe that we all have this voice within us that's constantly telling us that, hey, do this, all right, that's the right thing to do, right? Or get this done right now. You're going to be thankful for getting this done right now, right? Or in certain situations, or in high intense situations where decisions need to be made, what do you call it, at the get go, all right, you still have that voice letting you know that what's the right thing, right? But we let our preconceived notions, right, about either society, about either other people, get in the way, right? Or sometimes we let our own emotions of anxiety, or of like, or just thoughts in general come in the way, right? So that's why I say that at any given point in time, you are capable enough to alter your state of mind, all right, to make it clear enough so that you do what needs to be done.
Nice. So, what are the three books that you would recommend other people which have helped you throughout your journey?
Okay. So one of first of them has to be how to make friends and influence people. All right. The other one would have to be the third door. Mm,
Alex Perlman.
the yes, yeah, yeah. It's the only book that I have ever completed from start to finish in one sitting. It's that interesting. The third book would have to be the third book would have to be the Holy Quran. Honestly, right? It's a way of life.
So I was having Yash Ali Abdal's, I would say Ali Abdal's editor, or I think he works with Ali Abdal. So I had him on the podcast, and also
Oh,
recommended
interesting.
reading the third door, because sometimes like we might not have everything we to like get the opportunity, but we always have a third door into the opportunity. So he always recommend.
Absolutely. Absolutely speaking. And the way that the book is written, all right, it's written from a college person's perspective, all right? Someone just like us, all right? A college student a college student that is just like everybody else, all right? Just going through college, all right, and just sitting in the room, right, and deciding that okay, hey, like how do I get to know these people? How do I get to interview Bill Gates, all right? Or how have these people gone from where they were to where they are right now? All right, it's just a normal college student just asking these questions, and it dictates his journey, all right, and his failures as well. A lot of his failures, again, there are a lot of failures are being highlighted in this book as well, all right, through all the principles that he has suggested and followed as well. So not everything works. There's a lot of luck factor that is involved as well, all right. So it's a must read for everyone, honestly, especially for college students.
I'll link it down in the description. But what the last question is, what do you want to be remembered for?
Okay. I want to be remembered I want to be remembered for helping change lives, right? For having had impacted other people's lives in a positive manner, right? Whether it be through a mindset shift, whether it be through helping them overcome paralysis, whether it be through mental health, or whether it be through like a small conversation on the street that I had with someone, right? I want to be remembered for having impacted people's lives in a positive way.
That's nice. I actually didn't want to, like go into ExoHeal and everything, because other people have covered it
Hmm.
so nicely. I wanted to, dive into Zen and the person himself, and kind of explore Zen as to, who he is actually as a person. And, somewhere, like with the interviews and everything, I feel, they kind of focus more on the product rather than the person himself, the values he's coming up with, and, the things which is happening in his brain.
Hmm.
And that is why I actually didn't, like, though I'll mention it, but I actually didn't,
Oh yeah,
kind of like bring
definitely.
it up, as in like, please go into ExoHeal and that sort of thing. So then, where is the best place people can find you?
The best place that people can find me on is on Instagram at the moment. All right, so feel free to hit me up if you have any other ideas. If you want to collaborate, I'm always down for it. All right, so yeah, uh, in Instagram at the rate Zan Nemesis.
And guys, I'll link it down in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Let's Walk podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Until then, stay blessed, keep taking action. We will catch you in the next ones.